Imagine a time when all the lands between China and Europe had never heard of such things as human rights, religious freedom, or honest trade. Back then, people lived by whatever rules their local leader decided to make up, but one man changed all of that when he united warring tribes and built the biggest country in the world. How did he do it? What was his secret? And why does he have so many statues in his home country today? In the endless grasslands of Mongolia, there were no towns or cities, only tents and fires of nomadic tribes living among horses. In the year 1162, a baby boy was born to a tribal chieftain named Yasuge. They called him Temüjin, which means iron. But his life started out anything but strong. When Temüjin was just 9 years old, his father was poisoned by rival tribesmen, and his family was left destitute and without protection. Then his mother Holland took them all, including a young Temüjin, and ran away through the grasslands, hiding from anyone who might want to hurt her children. As they traveled, she would tell them stories about how their family used to be respected leaders, until their enemies made their father drink poison. Temüjin listened carefully and grew up with a burning desire for revenge, but life didn't get any easier. Eventually Holland settled down near another tribe and married a member of that group, making Temüjin a stepchild. Soon he had a half-brother and 2 stepbrothers, but, unfortunately, they didn't treat him very well. One time they tried to kill Temüjin while he was sleeping, but he woke up just in time and escaped. After this, Temüjin and his full younger brother Belgu had to run away and live on their own. They were now teenagers, and to survive, they hunted animals and drank their blood while scraping off the skin to eat. It wasn't easy, but Temüjin grew up to be strong, brave, and smart. So when he met a merchant who offered him work, Temüjin gladly accepted. He drove the merchant's oxen and protected his caravan along the dangerous trade routes. During this time, he learned how to read and write and continued developing his military skills so he could eventually avenge his father. But first, he needed to assemble a team of loyal soldiers. When Temüjin returned home, he found that his brothers had become chiefs of their own tribes and were always arguing over territory. This made Temüjin sad because he wanted his family to work together instead of being divided, so he did something crazy. He asked both of them to give up their power and become his personal bodyguards. Of course they said no, and Temüjin had to prove himself in battle if he wanted respect. So he assembled a small group of friends and went to see a nearby tribe. They were intimidating other groups traveling along the trade route, and Temüjin wanted to stop them. As they approached, he told his men to hide behind some rocks and wait for the right moment. When the enemy got close, Temüjin and his men jumped out and attacked. It was over quickly. None of the other tribe's soldiers could match Temüjin's fighting skills, and when their chief fell, the rest surrendered. Temüjin let them go with a warning, but kept their weapons and armor for his growing army. Soon he had hundreds of followers, and even more started joining him after hearing about his bravery. But Temüjin wasn't satisfied. He wanted to unite all the Mongol tribes under one flag so they could rule over the entire grassland. He began by visiting different tribes and asking their leaders to become his subjects, promising them riches and glory if they joined him. Some agreed, while others refused and had to learn the hard way that saying no to Temüjin meant going to war. He led his horsemen in fierce battles against enemy tribes, and each victory brought more followers to his banner. Temüjin also rescued people who were being bullied by larger groups, winning him even more support. To help organize his growing empire, he set up yurts, which are portable houses for important officials to stay in. Yurts became a symbol of authority and helped manage his lands. Temüjin's army was the most powerful in the region, thanks to his special tactics. He chose his soldiers carefully, usually older teenagers and adults who were strong and good at riding horses. That's because his strategy depended on fast cavalry that could quickly move across the open terrain. Even though they didn't have fancy armor, Temüjin's horsemen were deadly because they used bows and arrows while riding. They could shoot without stopping and hit targets from far away. One time, Temüjin's scouts saw a huge camp and reported it to him. Instead of attacking right away, he looked at the surrounding hills and decided to wait. Then at night, he quietly led his men closer to the enemy camp and waited for dawn. When the sun rose, his horsemen suddenly attacked. The enemy didn't have time to react. They couldn't fight back because they couldn't see who was shooting at them from the hills. Temüjin's soldiers kept moving backwards and forwards, taking turns to attack so they never got tired. The enemy's defenders slowly lost strength, and soon Temüjin's army had won again. Over time, his reputation grew and everyone knew his name. But what did he do with all those victories? Some conquerors take over land to rule it themselves. Others want gold and treasures. But Temüjin wasn't interested in gold. All he cared about was expanding his empire. He kept conquering new territories and adding them to his own. Before long, he controlled almost all of the Mongol tribes and beyond. His empire stretched from China to the Caspian Sea. In 1206, an assembly of tribal leaders gathered and declared Temüjin the universal ruler, calling him Genghis Khan, which means ocean-going ruler. It was a name fitting for the biggest country in the world. Genghis Khan set up an efficient government for his vast empire. He organized his army into units led by experienced officers and created a postal system to deliver messages quickly. Each yurt had a special flag so messengers knew where they were and what region they needed to report back to. Officials also collected taxes from merchants traveling on the roads, and used that money to support their families if they died in battle. This meant that soldiers didn't have to worry about their family's future when they went to war. In fact, Genghis Khan was famous for keeping his promises, valuing loyalty and treating people fairly, no matter if they were rich or poor, weak or strong. Once he even saved the life of a man he was supposed to fight against. Another time he spared an entire city after its people surrendered peacefully. Genghis Khan believed that starting wars cost too much, and it was better to negotiate and find common ground. He was also a big supporter of religion. While he followed Tengriism, a Central Asian belief system based on nature worship, he allowed people to practice whatever faith they wanted without fear of persecution. In fact, he was friends with a Christian monk who translated important texts from Latin to Mongolian. Because of this, Christianity started spreading throughout the empire. What's more, Genghis Khan was ahead of his time when it came to human rights. He believed that women should have the same opportunities as men. His daughter, Princess Bugu, was a brilliant rider and archer, and once he even saved a woman's life during a polo game, just because she was good at the sport. He abolished slavery and serfdom and gave people the right to choose their own jobs and property. If someone was good at their job, he promoted them to higher positions, not based on their social class. In fact, several high-ranking officials rose from humble beginnings because they were skilled and trustworthy. And finally, Genghis Khan helped make the Silk Road safer. This ancient network of trade routes connected China and Europe and was full of merchants from all over Asia, but bandits and corrupt officials often robbed them. However, once Genghis Khan's army started patrolling these roads, merchants could travel safely, which increased trade and cultural exchange between East and West. When Genghis Khan died in 1227, his empire continued to grow. His grandsons conquered western China and northern India. His empire reached as far as the Arabian Peninsula, Central Asia, and Eastern Europe. And though he may be gone, his legacy lives on. Genghis Khan is considered the father of modern Mongolia, and many statues have been built in his honor. To some, Genghis Khan was a ruthless conqueror who led his horsemen to burn, pillage, and kill. He was responsible for some of the biggest battles and deadliest sieges in history. But to others, he was a visionary who ended the days of inequality and unfairness in Mongolia. He established laws that valued loyalty and hard work, crushed corrupt officials, and helped make the world a safer place for merchants. He opened up possibilities for people from all walks of life and created one of the largest countries the world has ever seen. No matter how you feel about him, one thing is certain: Genghis Khan changed world history forever. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Was Genghis Khan a hero or a villain? Let us know in the comments below. And remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories from history. See you next time.